We're live.
All right, so for our topic today, we're going to be finding the percent of a number. That's going to come in towards the bottom of our notes today. But right now, we're going to review changing our fractions and decimals to percents. We've done that earlier this year. We're going to go over it again just to make sure we still have those skills sharp. The notes today are going to be number 5. So if you have not filled in number 5, make sure we number it so it's in the correct location in our notes section. All right. For our first problems, just reviewing how to change fractions and decimals back into percents. Starting with a fraction. So to change this fraction into a percent, first of all, can someone remind me what operation is the fraction bar the same as? Morgan. Dividing. So a fraction bar is the exact same as dividing. So guys, that's what we're going to do. We're going to type into our calculator 6 divided by 25. All right, before you start typing into your calculator, guys, we need to make sure we fill that in on our notes. Because when you go back and look at this, if you didn't write 6 divided by 25 there, you're just going to be, where did this magic decimal come from? Okay, so make sure you write that in. All right, if you don't have a calculator, we'd have to do long division. All right, we mastered that first 9 weeks, so we are now using that calculator to type our division in. All right, our goal here, the calculator, what does the calculator tell me when I type that in? Raise your hand if you can tell me. Solve. 0.24. Now, guys, 0.24, is that a percent?
Yes.
Not yet.
No.
All that is, does the calculator say percent sign next to it? No, and it wouldn't anyways. All right. So this is not a percent, guys. This is just a decimal. But here's the cool thing. Changing a decimal to a percent is really, really easy. All right, yesterday we talked a lot about how to lose the percent sign. To lose the percent sign, which direction did we go? Left. To the left. Lose, left. They both start with L. That's our memory technique, okay? To get the percent back, here's how I remember this one. To put the percent right back, see what I did there? Which direction are we going to go?
Right.
To the right. How many times?
2.
Twice. Very good. So we're going to go to the right 2 times, all right, because we want to put the percent right back. And what do I get as my percent, Caleb? What do I get as my percent?
Oh, 24%.
24%. All right. Now remember, guys, when you're doing these problems, you don't have to write out 6 divided by 25 on your homework. I would like to see the decimal that you get and then the percent, but you don't have to write that division out. Why would it be so important, though, that I write it in my notes? Brian?
So you know.
Yeah, so when you look back, you know, oh, I divided to get that 0.24. It didn't just magically appear on my paper. Okay? All right, so for number 2, we want to change this to a percent. This was already a decimal. To put the percent right back, what are we going to need to do, Allie Claire? To put the percent right back, what do we have to do? Move the decimal to the right. How many times? 2 times. So that gives me 340.2. What do I have to add to that? Percent. Whoo, y'all almost forgot. Almost got in trouble. Almost left it off. If I don't write the percent sign, is my answer wrong? Yes, because 340.2 is completely different than 340.2%. Please remember that. Okay. All right. Questions about 1 or 2? All right. So that was review. So 3 and 4 are some more review. Because we're just taking the number and we're putting it in the 2 other forms. So if this is a fraction, what other forms do I need to write it in, Nick? Decimal and percent. Decimal and percent. Decimal and percent. Okay. How? Not the question I wanted to ask. Let me rewind. Would I want to make it a decimal first or a percent first? Which would logically make sense to do first? Because it doesn't tell you which order to do it. You get to decide. Haley Owens?
Decimal.
A decimal first. We have to do a decimal first. Why?
Because when you do change
it to percentage, from fraction to percent, you need to do it through a decimal first.
Right, exactly. So I'm just going to reiterate what she said so we can all hear. Since when I'm taking a fraction, the first step was to change it to a decimal, if we have to do that first anyways, we're going to go ahead and write that in. So how do I change 9 over 24, 9/24 to a decimal? Luke. 9 divided by 24. All right, again, I can use my calculator to help me with that instead of doing the long way. What do we get, Clay?
0.375.
0.375. Do y'all agree?
Yes.
0.375. So that's my decimal, so I'm going to go ahead and put a box around it. Box it up. Okay? Now, to make it a percent, guys, this is something that I want to be very clear about. I don't want you drawing arrows in this box, because guess what that is a signal of? That's us moving the decimal. Do we want to move this decimal right here? No. So I'm just going to rewrite it for my notes so I know what's going on, okay? So I'm going to rewrite that decimal, and now to put that percent right back where it belongs. Which direction am I going? Haley?
To the right.
To the right. 1, 2, and we get 37.5%. Okay. All right, number 4. This time I'm given a decimal, so what do I need to change my decimal to? Caleb, give me one.
A percent.
A percent, and what's the other thing, Caleb?
Fraction.
A percent and a fraction. We want to change it to a percent and to a fraction. Okay. How am I going to make that decimal a percent? Peyton. Move the decimal 2 times to the right. Very good. So what do I get for my answer on that one, Taylor?
56%.
56%. Make sure we include that percent symbol. Okay, so that was super easy. Now we got to make it a fraction. So we got to think a little bit. Don't let your brain shut down because you saw the fraction word. Okay, what do I need to do? Abby Faith. Okay, so 100 does go on the bottom. And why does 100 go on the bottom? Morgan?
Because percents are always to 100.
Okay, so 56% is out of 100. That's true. But let's look back at that decimal. We were given a decimal. How do I make a decimal a fraction, Caleb?
There's 2 numbers after the decimal, so you have to put 2 zeros.
There's 2 numbers after the decimal, so we put 2 zeros. The other reason, 6 is in the hundredths place, so we put 100. And what goes on top of that fraction, Liam? 56, because that's the number behind the decimal. All right, so guys, simplifying is not our strongest skill. All right? We need to be able to pick 2 numbers to divide this by. All right, guys, y'all also have scientific calculators at your disposal. All right? So this is a tool that we can use to help us simplify the fraction. Just as a reminder, if I wanted to simplify the fraction and use my calculator to assist me or to check my work, I would type in 56. I would turn the calculator on. Then I would type in 56. I would hit the ABC button. That's my fraction button. And then I would type in 100. Now at that point, I'm just wanting to simplify it. So I don't have to use an operation over here. I just hit equals. And it gives me 14 over 25. So that would be my answer. Can someone tell me what did we divide by to get the 14 and the 25? Nick?
4.
We divided these by 4. So if I was doing this by hand, I would have chosen 4, divided them both. I would have still gotten 14 divided by over 25. All right? In one of my other classes today, I had someone that were like, oh, but I divided it by 2. I just had to do it twice. That's perfectly okay. If they're even numbers and you want to divide by 2 to cut them in half, I'm fine with that. Make sure you go all the way. Are we okay with that? Questions about that? Okay. All right. The next part. So this is kind of new. Not really. Kind of new. On these problems, we're wanting to find the percent of the quantity.
We're recording. Wait, are we?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so sorry, I had to pause to cough for a second. So now that we're back, one of the questions that was just asked was quantity. Let's have a little reminder of what the word quantity means. That just means find the percent of the number. Find the percent of the amount. All right, that's a really good question. Now, guys, the key word in all of these problems, we're finding the percent of something. Can anyone tell me what operation does the word of signify? Sophia?
Adding.
Okay, so adding, potentially, but that's not actually the one that's going to be the most useful. All right, it's only because adding is an extension of this other operation. What operation does of signify? Carson? Multiplying. So guys, I want you to make sure you write that down on your paper. Of means that we want to multiply. And we talked about that a little bit in our math workshops this week. All right, if I want to find half of something, I'm not dividing by a half, I'm actually multiplying by that fraction. Okay? So we're going to multiply. Now, here's my dilemma. 8% is not really a number that I can use. Numbers can be whole numbers, fractions, decimals, not percents. Okay? So a percent is like a type of measurement, but it's not actually a useful number in itself. So what could I do to that percent? Brian?
Change it to a decimal.
I could change it to a decimal. Now, alternatively, I could also technically make it a fraction. Which one's easier to multiply by?
Decimal.
A decimal, since we're using a calculator. If we did not have a calculator, I would definitely recommend a fraction. But because we got that calculator, we're going to change it to a decimal. To lose the percent, what direction do I need to go to lose the percent? Julie? What direction do I have to go to lose the percent? To the left. So we're going twice. Make sure we're still going 2 places over. All right, so how am I going to write that decimal now, Ledger? 0.08. Excellent. What does the word of mean again?
Multiply.
Multiply. Very good. And then we're going to bring down our 22. All right, ta-da. Now you're ready. 0.08 times 22. What do we get? Sol. Let's make sure we're typing in 0.08. All right, make sure you type that in correctly. What did you get? Ethan.
1.76.
1.76. That sounds correct. All right, so let's talk about how I knew automatically that we had typed something in wrong with the first answer choice that was given. So when I'm looking at this, when I'm looking at 8%, all right, 8% of something. So first of all, what does 100% mean? What does that 100% mean, Allie, Claire?
Like altogether total.
You're going to check altogether total, the whole thing. All right, 100% would be the whole entire thing. Do y'all agree with me? Okay. 8%. Is that even close to the whole thing?
No.
No, 8% is like very little of it. If you made an 8% on a test, you know that you didn't do well because did you get a lot of the problems right?
No.
No. So an 8% is a small amount, correct? So if I'm finding a small amount of 22, would I expect that amount to be higher or lower than 22? Lower. If I want a small amount of 22, it should be smaller than 22, right? Should it be a lot smaller than 22 or just a little bit smaller than 22?
A little bit. No, it should be on.
Sophia?
When this is find the percent of the quantity and we put 1.676, does that mean we have to put a percent sign after it?
All right, we're not finding the percent. We're finding the percent of something. So no, this itself is not a percent. What that means is if I had like 1.76 over 22 as a fraction, the percent it would change to would be 8. Yes, Kevin.
Oh, do you want the answer?
Oh, yeah, okay, so thank you. Going back to the question that I asked. Keep me straight, guys, okay? When I'm finding 8% of 22, we've already said it's going to be smaller than 22. Would I expect it to be a lot smaller than 22 or just a little bit smaller than 22?
A lot smaller.
A lot smaller, because 8% is very little, correct? So is 1.76 very little compared to 22?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty small. That's a significant difference, okay? So that's how I knew okay, that answer sounds like it's on the right track. All right, guys, it's more than just being able to type that into your calculator. It's also being able to recognize, is this appropriate? Did I type everything in correctly? Did I do the problem correctly? Okay? All right. So before we work out number 6, let's talk about it. 315%. What on earth does that even mean? Can someone help me out with that? Can someone explain to me, what does 315% even mean? Ledger?
That it's out of 1,000, maybe, or a bigger number than 100.
Okay, so whenever we're talking about percent, so this is kind of the cool thing about percents. Please stop tapping. The cool thing about percents is that every percents are a ratio compared to 100, period. So 315% is the relationship compared to 100. Okay? So that's important to know. 315% is the relationship compared to 100. So like let's think about a test, for example. If you made a 105 on a test, what would that mean?
You got bonus.
You got bonus. So you got like all the problems right, and you got some bonus points, right? So you got the entire test, the whole test, plus some more, right? So what 315% means is like, I didn't just get the whole thing, I got the whole thing 3 times, because it's 300, right?
Yes.
So I got the whole thing 3 times and a little bit more. So 315% means that I got 25 and a bunch more. All right, so like if you make 105 on a test, you got 100 plus you got some more on there, right? So if I have 315%, am I expecting my answer to be a piece of 25 or more than 25? More than 25. More than 25, yes. Because again, that's 315%. A whole would be 100. Well, that's more than 100, isn't it? So that's more than the whole. So that's more than 25. Okay? Would I expect it to be like a little bit more than 25? Or a lot more than 25?
A lot.
A lot. Like 315%, that's a lot more than 100. So that's going to be a lot more than 25. So let's work it out and see if that's what happens. All right? To make 315% a decimal, we're going to move it twice to the left. Left, because we're losing the percent. If you lose the percent, you go left. So I end up with 3.15 of means multiply, and then we have 25. All right, so when we type that in, what do we get, Taylor?
78.75.
78.75. Did we end up with something much larger than 25? Yes. In fact, almost a little bit over 3 times that amount. All right, number 7. All right, let's again talk about the amount and what we expect, and then we'll work it out. 87%. Am I expecting it to be all of 26 or just part of 26 if it's 87%? Part, right? 87% would indicate, did I get all of the problems correct?
No.
No. Did I get a lot of them correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I got part of the test correct. So that's what's happening here. I should only have part of 26. So my number should be smaller than 26 in my answer. Does that make sense? 87% is part of something. So it's going to be smaller than 26. Now, is it going to be a lot smaller than 26 or just a little bit smaller than 26? A little bit, because if I have 87%, is that almost all of it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's going to be close to 26, but still smaller. Abby Faith, did you have a question?
So it's like 100 supposed to be like the limit, and then if it's over 100, then it's like
It's over the whole amount, yes.
And then, so then it's supposed to be bigger, and then if it's lower than 100, it's less than 100.
No, that's perfect. In fact, I'm going to reiterate what Abby Faye said because you just kind of connected all the dots for me. I love it when that happens. All right. So she said, if it's bigger than 100, that means bigger than a whole. So I expect it to be bigger than the number I'm talking about. If it's smaller than 100%, that means it's only a piece of it. So it should be smaller than the number I'm talking about. So over 100, bigger. Lower than 100, smaller. If it's a lot lower than 100, I want it to be a lot smaller. If it's just a little bit smaller than 100, it's just going to be a little bit smaller. Okay? So in this case, 87% is going to change to 0.87. Thank you. All right, of because multiplication and 26. So when I multiply that, what do we get, Chloe? 22.62. Is that smaller than 26? Yes. Is it a lot smaller than 26? No, it's just a little bit smaller, which is what we expected because 87 is just a little bit smaller than 100. All right, 0.2%. Obviously smaller than 100, right? A lot smaller than 100? Yes, that's like not even 1, okay? It's a whole lot smaller than 100, so I expect my answer to be a whole lot smaller than 1,000. So let's move our decimal, guys. Even though there's a decimal there, it's still a percent, so we still got to lose the percent by going to the left. And this is what a lot of us forgot when there was a percent in there to do on our homework, so go to the left still. So I get 0.002 of, so we're multiplying 1,150. All right, what do we get when we multiply that? Liam?
2.3.
2.3. Is 2.3 like way, way smaller than 1,150? Yes. Okay. So that's my answer that I'm looking for. Are there any questions on this? No.